The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
I have good news for Vikings fans, John. The way at this pace, I'm 85% certain the Minnesota Vikings will have a general manager in place by next year's draft.
I mean, what's the rush, Jim? Like,
what's
that's
the rush?
We've already blown past this year's draft. We're put together a selection of players that you would think might factor into the future of this team quite a bit, but who needs someone to oversee all of that right now? It's just like let's just save ourselves some time and some panic and just ease into this. Maybe this is the new wave. Maybe we just don't have a general manager and you just go forward that way, and we're going to revolutionize the way that organizations are run.
Well, I can see the draft room with Ziggy sitting next to Mark, who's sitting next to Kevin O'Connell, who's sitting next to Brian Flores. And then Ziggy doesn't speak publicly, so Ziggy would whisper into Mark's ear. Mark would turn to Kevin and say, hey, we think we should get player X. And Kevin would say, does he play wide receiver? And Mark would say, no, he's actually a defensive lineman. And Kevin would say, we're drafting a wide receiver. And then Brian Flores will get Kevin O'Connell in a headlock until he got the defensive lineman he wanted. It's a seamless process, I think.
Seamless, and I don't see how it couldn't be wildly successful as well.
Why not?
Let's go full craziness and just throw everything to the wolves and see what happens. It can't go any worse than the last couple of drafts prior to this one. So,
well, that's a good point. That is the argument for trying something new. Is traditional methods fail all the time. That is very true. Although Kwesi wasn't exactly traditional, so you can look at it any way you want. Anyway, this is the Viking Update Show. We're actually going to talk about some serious subjects here. At least a few serious subjects. We'll also kick some goofy ideas around. We kind of like the off season. And post-draft, we get to have some fun with these shows. It's not just about mock drafts and everything else. Viking Update Show is presented to you by OnX Hunt, and we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. And we are also sponsored by True Vision Institute. True Vision helped John get to the point where he could do his podcast without wearing glasses, which is appreciated by John and everybody else. All right, let's take before we get to football stuff, because they are starting practices this week, let's get to the general manager search. My latest view of this is that I think Brzezinski's really valuable. And I also think you want a top personnel person in the room and in the building. I would hire the best general manager available. I would give him the title of general manager. I'd pay him well. I would also have Rob Brzezinski at the top of the organizational hierarchy. As he doesn't even need a new title. He just needs to kind of be recognized that way. I'm sure get a raise, whatever else. I would be most comfortable going forward with Rob overseeing a true personnel-led general manager. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting, Jim, because I think I'm in that camp as well. But I do think that there's some interesting or important context that we haven't really discussed on this show much yet, that's sort of kind of come into the record over the last week or two as this thing has kind of crept along at a snail's pace. And Alec Lewis had it, and I'm sure it's been reported elsewhere. But next week, the Vikings plan to interview 5 candidates in person: Brzezinski, Reed Burkhardt from the Denver Broncos, Terrence Gray from Buffalo, Nolan Teasley from Seattle, and John McKay from the Rams. And then a decision would be kind of expected the next couple weeks after that. But the thing that I think is relevant in terms of how we look at what is going to happen is you and I have talked on the show about I think a great idea of maybe you hire a younger personnel guy that is just dyed in the wool. I'm draft, I'm free agency, talent evaluation. And then, he's your GM. And then over the top of that is Rob Brzezinski as the connector to bring everyone in that front office and in the organization together, coaching staff, ownership, scouting, business side, all of that, because Rob is just really, really sharp with relationships, with building kind of consensus, with just trust and competence and integrity. Like, he's got all of those things. And so it makes sense to me and to you as well, I think, to have him be the uniter and let the personnel guy really grind on just the talent evaluation and not maybe be quite as kind of, I don't know, beset by all of the other kind of managerial, organizational roles that can come with that job. But Mark Wilf has said now a couple of times, including most recently with Yahoo last week, is that it looks like the Vikings want to continue with the model that they have had over the last, however many years, which is our head of football operations is kind of the guy. He is the leader. There's no sort of layer above him that factors into that. And so it would seem like the Wilfs are leaning toward, at this point, hiring whoever it is, whether it's Rob or someone else, and then that's our guy. And then you just go forward with that, and there's no sort of massaging of roles or changing of the hierarchy to kind of maybe fit Rob Brzezinski in and his talents in a different way. And so, of course, all of that could change next week when they get these guys in and like interview them face to face, and maybe they come up with this different idea and a different impression after the interviews. But it sure seems like it's going, in a different direction than that model that you and I have discussed. And so we'll see what that means for who they end up hiring. But it seems going to be more traditional in the sense of the way the Vikings have always done it.
What I think about is Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah had never been a general manager before. He'd had some intriguing jobs with, intriguing organizations, and he had a certain amount of experience on the personnel side, but it was really more kind of analytic driven. I mean, what if Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah had somebody like Rob Brzezinski
totally
empowered to look over his shoulder and say, okay, I know what you're trying to do here. Let's just take Kyle Hamilton. Mm-hmm. Let's just, we can be creative in some ways, but if a good player's sitting there and he's going to be a Pro Bowl, all-pro style player for the next 10 years and we need safeties, let's just take him. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kwesi might still be the general manager if he had somebody with rational experience right there in the room with him.
Well, yeah, and I'll even take that further. Let's say that whether that was Rob or someone else in that role didn't even put his foot down on Kyle Hamilton, but let's just say that Kwesi makes that trade, same trade, passes on Kyle Hamilton, goes through the whole thing with it, but then afterward and going forward, there is someone to say, hey, Kwesi, you got to kind of connect a little bit more with the coaches. You got to build a little bit more of a rapport with different stakeholders within this organization so that people trust you when you're making these decisions. And no one expects everyone to be 100% right all of the time with all of these draft picks and free agent evaluations and all these things. But one of the key pieces of this job is to inspire faith and trust that you are doing things with the best interest of the organization involved and that you're listening to other people that are in the building. And so hey, Kwesi, you have this little fracture over here that you should probably try to work out and reconfigure. Hey, there's these people over here are feeling like they're not really involved in this. How do we bring everyone together? And so there was a lot of palace intrigue and Game of Thrones style stuff during Kwesi's tenure inside the building. And I think someone just there to help him see that bigger picture would have helped him a lot and would have maybe even extended his run here if he had just been better at building those relationships and cultivating all that stuff and being a real leader of the group. And I think that he just didn't see that. And that's why it would be valuable going forward too, because there's a bunch of guys on this list, Jim, who I think are qualified, but have never done it. They've never sat in that chair. Like they've never been at the head of the snake. And so that takes a whole different skill set and leadership ability that some people have and some people don't. And so, I think that there's tremendous value in Rob, whether he is the guy, whether he's the leader at the top, or whether he's like right alongside or however you configure it to be like, hey, this is your guy to help you get settled in here, to be kind of your eyes and ears and really kind of help build consensus, because I don't necessarily think there's been a lot of consensus in that building for a while now.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was hearing from some Vikings employees, when Kwesi first got there, that, oh man, it's kind of everybody loves everybody over there. Everybody works so well together. And I don't think that lasted very long.
Not long at all. I'll tell you, Jim, I had a conversation with someone that I've known for a very long time in that organization. There's a million people who have been there forever. And it was probably, it was at the training camp after he was hired. And I just said, hey, how's it going? And it was, well, it's different. It's different. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad or whatever, but you could tell right away that, okay, this was going to be an adjustment process for everyone involved. And so I don't think it ever got smooth, after maybe the honeymoon period of that first month or two where he was on the job. And it was a strain all the way through his tenure.
And this is a good time to remind people, and we hear this from Vikings employees all the time, the Vikings, probably most visible, what's the best way to describe them? Most visible, most magnetic organization in Minnesota, if not the upper Midwest. And they cast this massive shadow. Everything they do is under scrutiny. They're always under pressure. Everybody talks about them every day of the year. It's funny, because I covered the Vikings a lot in my career. Nobody considers me a football guy because I covered the Twins. I covered the Vikings as much as I covered the Twins, but it's easier to become identified as the person who covers the Twins because everybody covers the Vikings. Everybody talks about the Vikings. It's just everybody's entity. And it's easy to forget it's not that big an organization. There just aren't that many people working every day in that organization. They've grown out since what they used to be, of course, and they have a huge coaching staff. That's changed, and probably more medical people and all that. But in terms of the people who deal with each other in the front office every day, it's still a very small organization. And if somebody ain't getting along with somebody, there's no way to hide it.
Yeah, and to take that even kind of a step further, one thing that is unique about this, how I would say the changing of the guard has happened here, is that a lot of the people, let's say a lot of times, maybe most of the time, if a front office hires a general manager and to come in and run football operations, that person comes in and fairly quickly, or at least within the first year, cleans house. And these are my guys I'm bringing in with me because I'm getting people who know me, who I know, who trust me, who will all be kind of in the same boat with me going in that direction. The people that I hire are going to be loyal to me, so I'm bringing them in. I think that the Vikings had a lot of people who stayed from the previous regime, who have been here for several regimes, because they're really good, but also the other dynamic of that is they've been here a very long time. And so they have their ways of operating. They have a very good familiarity with each other, but then you have someone brand new come over the top and do things in a different way and not really have a very good bedside manner, not have a very good kind of way of networking and connecting, like Kwesi, struggled with, I think. And that makes the situation so much more complicated because I'm not saying it would have worked out well if Kwesi, fired a bunch of people and brought in his own staff and had like really all of his guys under here. It still could have been a big, whiff, but the element of so many Vikings football employees have been there for decades, and just being kind of trusted people with the Wilfs, it does set up a weird dynamic sometimes. And so that's why I think in this position, the person that they are hiring has to be better at reaching these people and connecting with them and building trust with them and getting it going that way, because they aren't going anywhere. And so, whether that is Rob, who like has all those relationships and that's all built in, or whether it's someone else who's coming in, the importance of just having a real open door policy and really connecting and making sure that everyone feels valued and feels included and feels like their work is not being done in vain, I think is just hugely important, because that's the environment that the Wilfs have established. I like it because there's so many good people in that building, but it is a different dynamic than what you might see at a lot of other organizations who would just have clean sweeps. Here, you bring in your own people and then we'll just go forward.
Let's get to quarterbacks and Brian Flores. Next week, I want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, believe it or not. I never want to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to talk about Aaron Rodgers, and John's going to join in. So check that out. Also, this is one of 3 football shows at TalkNorth.com, along with Alec Lewis's show. Alec also joins us periodically on this show, and we have Jeff Diamond, the former Vikings general manager, doing his show at the network, and it gives you 3 completely different perspectives from smart people on the Vikings. All right. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
When your furnace, air conditioner, or thermostat isn't working right, you need a local team you can trust. Whether your home won't heat up, won't cool down, or your air quality is a concern, your home comfort team at Aquarius Home Services finds the problem fast and fixes it right. And you get $98 off any furnace or AC repair when you book with Aquarius today. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
And here's John Krasinski for True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute, TrueVision.com. Set up your free consultation. Tell them that we sent you from Talk North, and just get on with one of the best decisions you're ever going to make for yourself. I went to True Vision about 2 years ago now. I had LASIK surgery at True Vision. They guide you from the start to the end of the process so easily and so warmly and beautifully that it just makes it an unbelievable experience. And so I went and I went in for my consultation. They said, hey, we think LASIK surgery is the best for you. Here is why. I agreed with that. We went through the steps. Dr. Chu took me into the operating room. I was in and out of there in literally a matter of minutes. And by the next day, I was seeing ultra clearly. I've been seeing great for 2 years. If you're watching this on YouTube, you are seeing that I have no glasses. To not have to deal with glasses and contacts all of the time is just such a freeing thing. I am very busy. I'm sure you're very busy too. Just taking that out of the equation on the to-do list has been just wonderful. So go to TrueVision.com, set up your consultation, and just get on with living your life at True Vision.
That's right. Make sure you watch us on YouTube and follow Viking Update Show on Instagram and Facebook so you see each episode is released. We're also doing the John Krasinski show on YouTube. So a lot of our shows now are video and audio, however you'd like to access it. We do appreciate it. We are presented to you by OnX Hunt. You can go to onxmaps.com and find the hunting and fishing apps. I'm going to tell you today about onxmaps.com/fish, the fishing app. It's a planning tool and a navigation tool. Offline maps, turn by turn to the boat ramp, public, private land layers. OnX has been doing this for hunters for years, and now it's built for anglers. It's only $34.99 for the year, less than a spool of good braid. Download OnX Fish on the App Store or go to onxmaps.com/fish and fish smarter this season. Also, if you know any local businesses that would like to sponsor the John Krasinski Show or the Viking Update Show, you can reach our fabulous Vice President of Business Development. That's Tammy Henderson. She's been working in this market for a long time. She's great. T. Henderson at talknorth.com is how you reach her. All right. So, John, I'm going to buy in. I believe Kevin O'Connell when he says this is a quarterback competition between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. So tell me how this competition's going to go and when Kyler Murray's going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, right, I'd just be shocked if Kyler doesn't win it. But here's where I will give Kevin O'Connell some flowers for the way that he's handled this. Because, like, initially I'm like, yeah, right, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is a dog and pony show.
What's wrong with dog and pony shows? I like dogs. I like ponies. Why is that always a negative?
I know it should. Yeah, don't insult our intelligence. Is like, let's just go forward with this. But when you look at sort of Kyler Murray's career, and if you look at one of the criticisms that he has faced in his time, is that, hey, is he really all bought into this? Like, does he really want to put the work in that is required to be great at this? Or is he just getting by on his physical tools? And, you know, there was the whole thing about his contract in Arizona and like it having certain, you know, kind of clauses built in where he had to study. Like, that kind of tells me that you're worried about, is he going to do all the homework necessary, especially in this offense? This is intricate. There's a lot of things to do with it. Like, is he going to put the work in? And so if you do, as the head coach, publicly say, no, this is a competition, sure, part of that is maybe to make J.J. McCarthy feel good about, you know, maybe essentially losing his starting job this early in his career. But it also might be dangling the carrot in front of Kyler Murray and just saying, look, man, like, you're on a minimum deal right now. We are not paying you anything. We're not beholden to you at all. You did choose us over other suitors. We're happy about that. We told you we want you to be our guy. But if you're not going to put the work in, if you are going to sort of just kind of coast by on this, we do have a former number 10 overall pick that we still are invested in, that we want to give another chance to, and we'll give it to him if you're not going to do it. And so it is probably the right thing for Coach O'Connell to do, is to have that motivation in front of Kyler. Maybe if they just said right from the start, hey, Kyler's our number one, maybe you do risk the chance of Kyler just kind of coming in and taking things chill and not being as ready as possible. So I'm kind of giving Kevin O'Connell the benefit of the doubt here, that he knows what buttons he needs to push with Kyler Murray as much as he does with J.J. McCarthy here. And so that's what's going to bring out the best in Kyler Murray, which, look, this is a prove-it year for him. And so he should be operating with a high sense of urgency. But if he's got this young guy right behind him that could be ready to go if he slips up in any way, shape, or form, maybe that's not a bad situation.
Exactly right on Kyler Murray. I also think there's a motivational ploy that needs to be used for J.J. McCarthy. If you tell him he's the backup quarterback, maybe he gets depressed. Maybe he doesn't work as hard this offseason. Maybe he's not invested. Maybe he pouts. And if you tell him that he's in a competition, then he has no choice but to compete as if he's in a competition. Even if deep down he knows he's not winning the job, you know, if you're a competitor and they say you have a chance, you're going to take your shot. Because you know what? Here's the thing. If you did that, if you said, Kyler Murray's our starter, JJ, you're a backup, prepare like you're a backup, and then Kyler Murray sprains his ankle in the first quarter of the season, who knows if JJ McCarthy's ready? and he might have to be ready at any moment this season.
I'll say it, Jim. I fully believe we are going to see J.J. McCarthy play this season.
Yep,
at some point. You have to prepare for it that way. But certainly with what Kyler has gone through in his career and everything else, and just the nature of the game in general now, like we are going to see J.J. McCarthy in a big spot, in a game at least. And so he needs to prepare as if that opportunity is a given, that it is coming, whether he earns it as the starter in training camp or it comes to him via injury or ineffectiveness from Kyler Murray, he is going to get that chance. And so that's got to be at the front of his mind, is that at some point I am going to be in that huddle in purple leading this team again. And so the only way for him to be ready for that chance whenever it comes is to prepare as if he's in a competition. Put a chip on your shoulder. What is it? They don't believe in me. They brought in someone else. Whatever. That's fine. Whatever motivation it takes, go for it. But yes, you cannot put it in his mind that we have moved on from you. You are our in case of emergency break glass option. It's got to be more of no, we still believe in you. You just might need a little bit more time. And we have to bring in someone else too to be ready, because we saw how last year went when we didn't have that option. So I think that the more that I've thought about this, the more I've come around to the idea that this is the right way to publicly present the issue. Whereas I was straight up laughing at it when they first signed Kyler Murray. I was like, come on, what are we doing here? But now it does make more sense, having thought about it, having talked to people about both of these quarterbacks and what they need and what drives them. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Last note for today. The U.S. Supreme Court denied the National Football League's efforts to move a race discrimination lawsuit by Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores into arbitration, clearing the way for some of his claims to proceed. So that's from BloombergLaw.com. I'm sure they do a really good job of breaking down all the legalistic stuff. I just thought I'd update you on that. So we will talk about Aaron Rodgers. We'll continue to talk about Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy, Vikings roster, NFL developments here next week. We do appreciate you listening. Check out the John Krasinski Show for Timberwolves stuff. Check out our other Vikings shows. Just go to talknorth.com and check out our lineup. It's great. You'll find something you like, and we do appreciate it.